as construction costs cause the unit size to diminish a little in downtown Chicago, are we seeing intelligent responses to that in design, or is it still too early to have adapted to those realities with the layouts?
Well, I'm not sure what's happening in other offices. I suspect we're all aware of what's going on and all looking at similar challenges, but certainly on new projects that we are planning, we are taking a hard look at some of the traditional arrangements and proposing things that are I think, quite different than we would have done even a few years ago to try and address.
Examples of that?
Yes, we're planning a new project at 2100 South Indiana that contains. It's reusing an existing four-story loft building and building a high-rise adjacent to it. There are smaller units there that have more open plans and are more flexible. We're also working on some rental projects. 1000 West Van Buren building that will be about a 300-unit rental building that has much smaller units and kitchen space that is effectively doubles as transport space. So say to get to the bedrooms you have to walk through the kitchen, but you can no longer afford the luxury of having a hallway that is not really space that people use, that is simply a passage. And we think that people are going to accept that because the end result is that the spaces that do remain can be more usable. So we're trying to keep an eye on trends that are happening elsewhere and constantly looking at things that are going on around the world with a notion to I don't believe you can directly import ideas from elsewhere. Chicago has its own culture and American buyers have their own expectations, but there are always ideas percolating that have bearing, and I think hopefully the level of experience and the quantity of work that we have done on a consistent basis enables us to evaluate those ideas and sort of pick from those things that we think will work best here.
So to sort of take away from corridors and things like that, rather than the usable spaces and sort of maximize the practicalities of usable spaces. Are there any other sort of examples of how you're looking to do that in floor plans?
Well, I think not just in floor plans, but I think you're also going to increasingly see this with regard to materials and finishes, that ideas such as translucent walls, sliding walls, perhaps closet spaces that are dressing rooms without doors, things where you might have just in the past sort of reflexively put it there because that's the way it always was. You now have to look at these things and question, is it really serving a function? And if I put a door here, I have to allow room for the door to stack, and that means that it's no good as a furniture wall. So if this place is really going to be occupied by one or two people, do we need a door there? Again, I think loft space gave us an opportunity to try a lot of these ideas, and we found some that I think had real traction, that people saw the rationale of. Others not so successful, but we continue to kind of look and evaluate. And one of the exciting things about this business is that each project's a new beginning where you get to hopefully take the lessons from the past and deliver something better. And in a marketplace like Chicago, where there has been so much velocity for so many years, where there's been so many projects done, I really think that the kind of housing that's being developed and delivered in Chicago today, for the most part, is very good and perhaps in many cases much better than you see in other places where there's been less activity.
You mentioned that with the increase in construction costs, it puts an effect on housing. Will we see the emergence of non-traditional materials within the construction that you could maybe source more cheaply because of
absolutely. Also, I think...
Let me supplement that too and throw in another wrinkle, because you were talking about international versus U.S. the rest of the world doesn't build with wood.
Well, but
And we do still. So.
But that's somewhat to their disadvantage because wood turns out to be a highly renewable resource. In fact, you know, one of the things that that distinguishes American architecture historically is the ready availability of wood, and I think there are ways to incorporate that. Wood resonates for most Americans. People are still like wood floors. People still like wood cabinetry. But at the same time, I think you're going to see, both because of changing tastes and needs, but also because of all the green initiatives now, we're going to see a lot more emphasis on materials that are environmentally smart, that are derived from sustainable sources. For example, we may not be talking next year about hardwood. We may still be talking hardwood floors, but it may be bamboo instead of oak, because bamboo is a far more renewable resource. So,
is it cheaper now at this point, or would it become if there was mass?
I think that what you're going, there's not a great disparity any longer, and as things go forward, you may actually see some of these materials, because of demand, become more available and cheaper. For years, we went to great lengths to put plaster ceilings in what were essentially concrete buildings. Now, people are happy with the concrete, or in the case of a loft building, the exposed wood structure above is actually viewed as more desirable than a piece of painted drywall. So deleting the things that people no longer value and refocusing those dollars on into areas where you can create a noticeable difference and create something that people do value is what constantly drives the change in the business. And I think that's going to continue and probably accelerate.